Just like we do on every Monday, we're going to pull up the next-gen stats and identify the trends at the running back position from Sunday and see whether or not we want to have these guys on our fantasy team, drop them from our fantasy team, or just fill our confirmation biases. But what you need to do right now is click that subscribe button. Tap it with your finger on your phone. Click it with the mouse on your computer. Stop missing out because we deep dive these stats every single day on this channel. Not just for fantasy, but also NFL draft in the offseason. And I'm a huge resource for your research for your drafts next August. By clicking that subscribe button, you're not going to miss out on that. And also, I'm going to help you set your lineups this week and also win that waiver wire. But let's look at these 10 running backs, these next-gen stat charts, and Kyren Williams, the talk of the town, coming back from injury, getting the workload. And we covered that workload a lot last week. We pulled up 2 press conferences from Sean McVay, and we tried to read what he was saying, and it sounded good that he was going to get a lot of touches. He was going to get a bulk of the work, and more than likely, if he lost work, it'd be like 5 to 10%, and Royce Freeman would be like a meat shield, which they may want to do so Kyren Williams doesn't get burnt out, get used to death, so they can have him more for the long term. But still, he got the workload, 143 yards, 6 targets, 6 catches, 38.4 PPR fantasy points in a game where the Rams routed the Cardinals. Had a lot of questions on Kyren Williams. Felt good about him, but wasn't 100% certain about the touches, but felt pretty good about the touches. But to the point, it was still a little bit gamble to be certain on that. Sean McVay in those press conferences felt good with what he was saying there, even though he's got like a 75% hit rate when it comes to usage. But Kyren Williams is back. He's getting workload. He's getting touches. He's not on waivers. If not, should be. He should be on a team right now. And if you have him, just enjoy the workload. Start him if you got him in tough matchups. He's going to be using the passing game. Of course, we're going to see volatility because we see that with all players. But he's getting workload. He's back. He's a key piece in the offense. And Kyren Williams is good to go. Rashard White had that hiccup on Friday where his knee locked up. A lot of people had questions on that. And Sunday morning on the live stream, what I said is we do not have full information on the knee to go either way. Fundamentals says to start him if he's good to go. The news said he's good to go. So more than likely you should start him. But if your gut told you different, do what your gut says. But if it was me, I'd probably start him and follow the fundamentals. But you do you with your gut choices. And some of you guys, your gut choices might have led you astray. But again, when a player has an injury like this that pops off, you don't know. And by saying that he's a start or a sit one way or another is a lie. So just tell the truth and say, hey, we don't know. Trust your gut instinct. Follow the news hardcore and just do the best you can with it. Rachaad White, 15 carries, 100 yards. And he's been lights out this season. He's been under the radar when it comes to price on the trade market. He was a guy you probably could have traded before the deadline and got him at a discount considering his production because he's pretty reliable. Used well in the passing game. His workload in the passing game was a little bit lighter here, but still saw 15 carries for 100 yards. Score your 13 fantasy points. So if you did sit him, it didn't kill you. Like say if your running back only scored 6 or 7, you're only a few points away from him unless you had a tight matchup. But again, if you sat him, it didn't kill you. It didn't kill your matchup. Still, though, he's back. The injury does not look like it was in full effect. He's good to go for the next week. Keaton Mitchell, watching him on Sunday night, every time he touches the ball and you just see a tiny bit of daylight, it really ramps you up. You get very excited because you know there could be a home run on the other end of this. And you see him get 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, you get very excited. Next thing you know, he's tackled for a 9-yard gain. But still, that's about every carry. A couple carries, the defense will contain him, get him locked down. They'll beat the offensive line on a good clip there. But Keaton Mitchell, every time he touches the ball, it's an event because you do not know if he's going to bust it out for a touchdown, and that's him being the home run threat. If anything, he's got a huge fun factor for fantasy football. If you have him in your lineup, you got him in there and you're watching the game, even if he busts, at least you know for those 9 carries that he's going to have you at the edge of your seat. At least you're going to have that. At least if he scores you 0, you at least have that to lean on. But he did okay in this matchup, led the team in carries, had a few long runs, looked good, was effective in the passing game, catching 2 balls for 25 yards off 2 targets. And you know what? He's doing what we're asking of him, and eventually he's going to hit more home runs, get more opportunities. I like him even more for next year. Zach Charbonnet got the workload, and that's about it. And really, this is what you kind of expect out of him against the 49ers. To some people, this is a horrible performance in fantasy. To others, they're just happy to get the 9 points, and really depends on what end of the spectrum you are in, because it really depends on how hurting you were at running back. But still, he got touches, he got workload, didn't cross the goal line. That's what you really needed. Tough schedule, though. Cowboys, Niners, next after facing the Niners. Really rough. Kenneth Walker should be back sooner than later. We're also watching some of the other running backs on the depth chart. He's getting the workload right now. A good opportunity to prove himself for next year and later into the season. The team likes him. He's getting touches. Not a home run threat. But again, if you picked him up off waivers and you're comparing him to other waiver wire running backs, he's getting a lot of touches right now. And that's what you like about him. Bejon Robinson going ham again, getting the touches, getting the workload. Tougher matchup initially going into the week, but it did not prove that way. And I had a lot of questions about him, whether or not to start him. And I had him high on my list of starts. I talked about him a lot in the live stream, saying, hey, just start him. Just start him. He's at least going to be used in the passing game. You never know. He's getting workload. He could pop off. Popped off this week. 27 fantasy points. Got a lot of opportunity. Got a lot of workload. And Bejon Robinson, whether you like it or not, he's a generational talent. Derrick Henry. A lot of people soured on him. He had 2 bad weeks in a row. But this was a great matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Titans got up on this a little bit. Kind of a nasty game script. He was the first player to score a touchdown on Sunday. So that's a good thing to note. Scored 2 touchdowns in this contest. And running back score on the Panthers. They put up fantasy points on them, and that's something you want to follow. Derrick Henry did what he needed to do against a sus defense. Isaiah Pacheco was a heavy start this week. The Raiders are the defense that allows a lot of fantasy points to running backs. On top of that, McKinnon was out, so he got a little bit more work in the passing game with 5 targets. 25.9 PPR fantasy points, 55 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Getting a lot of workload here. Easy start for the week considering that information. And he turned true here. Getting a lot of workload between the tackles, outside the tackles, and he was using the passing game. Ramondre Stevenson got a lot of work, and it resulted in some decent fantasy production. Just the workload was heavy. The game script was nasty. It's hard to lean into him, but he's getting enough touches right now and enough opportunities where he can be reliable in fantasy for the back end of the season. A.J. Dillon, that's a name you don't want to hear too much, but he's getting workload with Aaron Jones out. He's getting opportunity. That could lead to something, maybe points that can get you by in your matchup. Might be on waivers, might not. Should have got picked up last week with Jones out. A.J. Dillon likes to turn it on in the back half of the season. He's done that over the last few years. Last 2 games has been okay, good enough to get you by with 21 fantasy points with those performances combined. Tony Pollard, another good performance here against the Washington Commanders, a game where the Cowboys were up. Another smash spot for him. 22 fantasy points, and I'm glad he got right against Carolina. He needed to get right against Carolina, or the Buzzards was going to attack because they were heavy in the media, and he did. And another good performance. He should be strong for the rest of the season. They're not going to go away from him unless he gets injured. Now we're looking at James Cook here, just getting a lot of workload in a tight matchup that went off the rails here in the rain. Saw 7 targets, good in the passing game. And he's a guy that can be good in all game scripts, especially when the Bills have to throw the ball and they're checking it down to him in the passing game. He's also getting a lot of run in the run game as well with 16 carries, 17 last week, 12 the week prior. And he's also been fairly reliable after some people were down on him in weeks 8 and 9. James Cook, decent fantasy asset. Those are the 10 running backs that we looked at from Next Gen Stats. Going over the trends from week 12. What running back you put in your lineup this week? I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.